Hello dear tea friends from around the world. Welcome to a new tea class with me, Stéphane Erler, the founder of the Tea Masters blog, one of the last blogs remaining, and also the founder of the Tea Masters Tea Boutique, tea-masters.com, your first stop and last stop, I hope, for tea and teaware. Today we continue on our semester class about oolong teas. We had Jinxuan from Alishan, Qingxing from Alishan, Qingxing from Shaninxi in the high mountains, 3 fresh oolongs. Then we moved to 2021 Hongshui oolong from Shaninxi. Then 2009 Hongshui oolong from Shaninxi still, made Dong Ding style, and today we go to a very small sample that I gave away in this sampler for this tea class. An oolong from Lugu, actually, from Dong Ding, from the 1980s. Now, even though I got it from the farmer himself, he was not able to tell me exactly which year it was made. Maybe it's a mix of a couple of batches. That's always a possibility. And so I only give you a few grams. Maybe that's a bit more than what you have. These are still available on my tea boutique. So if you want to redo these classes later on, you can still purchase this sampler, and this sample from 1980s will still be available, so far at least. There is of course a limited supply, so don't wait too long. Now, what I've just said is, by remembering all the teas that we have tasted, is that it's very important, if you want to learn about oolong and tea in general, to really have precise information about the tea that you are drinking. The cultivar, either Qingxing or Jinxuan so far, where it comes from, what type of process, even if it's harvested by hand, the season it was harvested in. Best is to know even if it was harvested on a particular day. Like this, you know that it's from a single batch and not from a mix of different batches. So that's always better to have all this information to better understand the tea that you are drinking, and then to be able to compare it with other teas. So what is interesting today with this tea is that it is roughly 40 years old, and we can see that it's really that old by looking at the shape of these leaves. Because if you compare it with the previous Hongshui oolong from 2021, for instance, you will notice that the leaves are not as tightly rolled as the younger Hongshui oolong. Here we even have one that has really opened up quite a lot. So this is really the way that you will tell that a tea is old or new in the Dong Ding area. If it's really very tightly rolled, it cannot be so old, because as these oolongs from Dong Ding age, they will start to open up and unfurl by themselves. So here, this is a very good example. The second thing we can do is smell it, and it really has a very particular smell, this one, that is not something you find in young roasted oolongs, where the roast will really jump on you. Here, these are for me more like farm smells. I'm a country boy originally, coming from Alsace. There were farms in the villages nearby, and you will. This is really almost a smell of animal that you would encounter in these farms in Alsace. So next, what are we doing? We are going to, of course, brew it by preheating first our Gaiwan. And warming it up more. The water. Still, of course, older teas, they would really benefit from Ising clay that helps to harmonize the tastes, but for study purposes, we want to use porcelain. And can start by making it really hot. Here it is. And here we go. One layer in the Gaiwan, and because this is an older oolong, I'm going to use quite some strength to wake it up. Okay. And I can see the leaves are unfurling very quickly, so I probably won't need as much time as I would usually need for high mountain oolongs or freshly roasted oolongs, which are tightly rolled. This one seems to be opening up much faster, and therefore it will release its flavors also much faster. The fact that the leaves are already a little bit unfurled is really consistent with my experience with other aged oolongs from that time. So for me, this tea really is from the 1980s, and actually it has a very similar smell to the 1980 spring Feng Huang Hongshui Oolong that is in my selection, also under the category of aged teas. The difference is much more actually on the taste than on the scent. Continue a bit. Okay, and let's go. Here the color is also a bit weak, kind of washed away. Here's how much I put in the Gaiwan. You can see it has opened up. It's not filling the whole Gaiwan. I don't want to overdo it. Tea needs also to be appreciated for its finesse, not necessarily only for its strength, and especially in older teas, this is what we are after, really the finesse rather than the power. It's normal that an aged tea will lose in power and strength as it ages. Aging is always losing some of what you have, but what we want is to first see how it evolves, and we hope, of course, that we can find aged oolongs, aged teas that become finer and finer, that what they lose in strength, they gain in terms of finesse and harmony. So let's smell. Really very interesting smells, because the roast smells are even more gone than last week, than when we were drinking the 2009. It's very sweet, doesn't have so much body, it has lost a lot of its power, but the sweetness is there, and with this very strange country smell, it's really very enjoyable. And we did it with the Gaiwan. Also trying to find more the defects than making it as good as it can be, but it is really complete absence of roast notes, so the farmer did not re-roast it too often and let it age naturally. That's why we can see that the leaves are really have opened up again, and their color is already trending towards green. He told me actually that this tea comes from Lugu itself, the village. As the village was growing in the 1980s, their tea field had to make way for the house that they were building close to the main road. So the tea we are drinking now is from a plantation that has been torn away to make place for the house and manufacture for this tea farmer, who now has other tea fields, especially tea fields in Shaanxi, higher up in that area. Yeah, really very clean and a lot of finesse. What helped also is that I've let it rest a few moments in this porcelain jar. I hope that you are enjoying it as much as I do, because it's actually it is much better today than a few months ago when I selected it. The aging and the storage facilities of farmers who produce lots of tea are usually not as good as what a private person can do in terms of storage. So I think it has already benefited a lot from being now stored in my place rather than in the farmer's place. So I'm very happy with the way this tea has turned out after only several months at my place, but of course 40 years roughly in with the farmer. So this will give you the typical taste of an older Dong Ding Oolong. Lots of sweetness, the roast is gone, and underlying all this there is still some freshness. Now maybe we can get a little bit more of this freshness in the second brew, and we can smell the empty cups. Very complex smells that you don't get from a freshly roasted oolong. So this is something that you have to wait patiently we saw that it takes over 10 years for the roast aromas really to fade away, and then maybe it takes another 10-20 years to for these flavors to evolve even further, still, because this one is still very different from the 2009 that I hope you can still compare it with. It is less pungent, it has less strength, but it has quite a lot of finesse. And now for the second brew we'll go much slower. I go much slower because I was already able to open up my leaves well. If for some reason you were not able to get your leaves open up very well, you might still need to use a stronger pour on the second brew. So this really is always depending on your actual leaves, how they've opened up. My indications are for my brew now, but it may vary for you depending on how your leaves have opened up. I've put also a chabu with more brown background for the fall feeling, and also the more earthy feeling that these aromas bring to my mind. But a lot of different colors actually shining and popping up because of the complexity of the aroma of this tea. Okay. Can have a look at the nice leaves. It's the typical one heart, two leaves, Ishin Aye. One heart, one bud, and two leaves, and the stem. And they are very, very delicate. So they were harvested very tender, very young. This is really also a good sign of quality. Actually, another bud. So actually, it's more like one bud and three leaves, but three very tender leaves. This also shows the difference in harvest style. In the high mountains, it's possible to wait for the leaves to grow much larger before they are harvested, but in Dong Ding in the 80s, to make good quality tea, they would really harvest them, these leaves, at a very tender age, when they were still quite small and quite full of flavors. That's also another reason why not to make this tea too strong, too concentrated, because these leaves are already very concentrated, being very small. Delicious. I have really the feeling that it's coming from an Ishing teapot, not from porcelain. The taste is really so clean. It's amazing. Again, what also helped is the storage in porcelain. The smells are also intensified and clarified with porcelain storage. This is one of the key points that made a difference between what the farmer was able to achieve with his storage in plastic bags and what you can achieve if you store it well in porcelain jars. Maybe, and sometimes this is also the reason why, if you understand this potential, you are able to give a chance to some older teas and let them further rest in your place with your jar to see how it evolves. Sometimes this can really make a lot of difference and help refine a tea. I'm really very positively surprised by how this one is turning out, and I'm very thankful for having the opportunity to make these classes for you. So I hope you have enjoyed this lesson as much as I've had, and we will do another class next week. This time we will continue our exploration of oolongs with a different style of oolong, after the high mountain style, after the Dong Ding roasted style, young and old. We are going to start to explore the Tieguanyin style. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you next week.